going to talk about the bride and what that actually means. So, I've talked about the Jewish wedding traditions and how I'm going to grab my notebook and how the bride is chosen. The bride is chosen by the son's father or the son himself. And when one is being sought out, they take 3 things to the bride's family. The price to pay for the bride, a large sum of money, or the price paid, which, speaking of Messiah, is his blood. A betrothal contract called the Shetri Yeruzin, and it is the Torah, the covenant words, the 10 Commandments, because this is the Aleph and the Tav, and then a skin of wine. They take these 3 things and they go to the man's or the girl's father and brothers, and they lay out the contract and they discuss it, which is the words to the covenant, because they're making a covenant agreement here. So they discuss the words to the covenant agreement, and then they discuss the price of the bride, and they pour a glass of wine. So if the father approves, they call the girl and they give her, all the ins and outs of this. And if she agrees to it, she drinks of the wine. Through that action, she's committing herself to this person. And she's agreeing to the terms, to the covenant relationship. And now that's a legal document. So in the spirit realm, when we agree, it's legal. It's a legal agreement. It's binding. And the 2 are called a husband and wife at that time. And the only way that could be dissolved is by divorce. But their status is betrothed. And after the wine had been drunk, the man says that he will go to his father's house and prepare a place for her. And this place is known as the chadar, canopy covering, or chamber, sometimes referred to as the huppah or honeymoon bed with a canopy. From the time that the betrothal contract is ratified, the young woman is consecrated. She's set apart to her husband. She had been bought with a price. So when we come into covenant with Messiah through his price for the bride and the words to the covenant, we are set apart. We are consecrated. We become betrothed. And then a time of waiting happens. And during that time, the 10 wise virgins that took their oil, the extra oil, we prepare ourselves. We learn of the ways that our husband likes, right? The young man prepares a place in his father's house. If the young man would be asked what day the wedding would be, he would reply, "No man knows the day except my father." In Israel, the father had to be satisfied that every preparation had to be made by his son before he gave permission for his son to go get his bride. So during the waiting time, the bridegroom would get two close friends. They are the witnesses, the two witnesses that come before the wedding. And his friends would help assist in securing the bride, and they also would serve as witnesses. Yeah. So during the ceremony, the wedding ceremony, a second contract would be brought out, the ketubah, the marriage covenant contract, which contains promises that the bridegroom pledges to his wife. A betrothal is a kiddushin, the Encyclopedia Judaica, that betrothal was a two-step process. So it's a betrothal contract and then the marriage. And then they go under the huppah and they have, they say the vows. But when they're underneath this, they are seen on the wedding day. Their sins are forgiven and they stand pure without spot or blemish when they are unified. And then they spend 7 days in this chamber, right? But I wanted to really point out that the two witnesses come. They help assist with the wedding preparations, and the wedding itself. The first trump shofar announced the betrothal, so the last trump announces the wedding. Because when the children of Israel were by Mount Sinai, they received the betrothal covenant contract words, and the trump sounded then. And when Messiah comes, when his wedding is to come, there will be a trump sound. Yeah. So I just wanted to go over that, but I'm gonna make another video because that goes along with the 10 virgins and the reference to Yom Teruah, Feast of Trumpets. But so I want to go back to bride, and how we become the bride when we come into covenant. The price is paid, and there's words to the covenant. It's what happened with the children of Israel when they came into the covenant of the Passover lamb with God. He said, I want you to go and prepare a place for me. I'm going to read those scriptures. So in Exodus 6:4, he said, I have established my covenant with them, and I will take you to me for a people, and I will be to you a God. And this is through the covenant. And he wanted to make them a kingdom of priests. And we see that same thing in Hebrews, but especially in Revelation. Revelation 5, it talks about through Messiah being the Passover lamb, renewing the Passover lamb covenant. He paid the price for the bride. He set them apart. And he's made them a kingdom of priests to our God. And then it says, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. That's what it's always been about. Covenant and the covenant words, the lamb, a kingdom of priests, but about making a dwelling place for God. He wanted us to become a dwelling place for Him. And so I'm going to bring back the bride. It says, when He commanded the people to build a temple, instead of saying He would dwell in it, He says, I will dwell in their midst. He will dwell in the midst of His people. This could be a physical building, but also implies that He will dwell in His people. This concept, understandable, recall the body of Mashiach includes all of the righteous. This body is called the bride. He will dwell in His bride. This is the same terminology which is applied to a normal bride and groom. During the wedding ceremony, the bride, while under the huppah, makes 7 trips around her husband. She surrounds him 7 times in order that she should become his house, his place. Throughout Torah and rabbinical literature, a wife is called a house. She is the house that her husband dwells in. From the marriage ceremony, we can see that when Hashem dwells in us, that He dwells as a husband dwells with his wife. The husband dwells in his wife. And I'm going to bring up other writings that talk about the wife or bride is the house, dwelling place, the temple of the Lord. Okay, so the Midrash, Rabbah, Leviticus 29. Thus it is written that Nadab and Abihu died, and they had no children. Numbers 3:4. Abba Hanan says, it was because they had no wives, for it is written, and he shall make atonement for himself and for his house, and his house signifies his wife. The Mishnah, written in the Peshat level, which indicates that a wife is literally a man's house, his dwelling place. Yoma 2a, chapter 1, Mishnah, 7 days before the Day of Atonement, the high priest was removed from his house to the cell of the counselors, and another priest was prepared to take his place in case anything happened to him. The high priest that would unfit him for the service, if anything happened to him that would unfit him for the service. Rabbi Yudah says, also another wife was prepared for him in case his wife should die. For it is written, and he shall make atonement for himself and for his house. His house, that means his wife. They said to him, if so, there would be no end to the matter. The Midrash and Mishnah indicates that a man's house is his wife. There's scriptures and everything to go over that, but I just wanted to really explain what a wife is. It's just a temple, dwelling place. There's another page that I'm going to bring up. Okay, so this, I don't know if you can see that. It's my handwriting stinks sometimes. Okay, so this is Strong's definition of H1964. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. Heikal. It means palace or temple or court. And it comes from 3201, which is a primitive root, which means to be able, to have capacity, to endure, to overcome, have power, prevail, still. But so the first one, the Strong's, is talking about a large building such as a palace or temple, a palace temple. And that's really what it is, a palace temple. Initially, God, when Eden was a place that was a palace, but it was also a temple because Adam was a king priest. And God wants to bring us back, well, he has through Messiah, if we will come into covenant, be a kingdom of priests, and we will dwell in paradise. And it says in Revelation that God and Messiah are the temple, and Messiah is the lampstand thereof. But this just brings up another thing that I wanted to point out, and it's in Revelations. And it says, okay, so this is Revelations 14. 14, 12, kind of like B, maybe. It says, here stand those who keep the commandments of Yahweh and keep the faith in Yeshua. But it first says, here we see the endurance and patience of the saints. Here stand those who keep the commandments. Okay, so I'm going to bring up my Hebrew translation. It's the same verse. It says, here is the hope of the set apart ones. Set apart. What happens when we become betrothed? The Jewish wedding tradition says once the woman drank from the cup, the wine, she then became betrothed to the groom to be, right? And then she became the bride to be. Through that action, those who do the commandments of Yahweh and believe in Yeshua, the commandments are the covenant terms. So really, to me, what it's saying is that, I'll just read what I wrote. This goes with betrothal of bride to be. You become set apart and are in covenant by the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony, which is the covenant words, because they're in the ark of the testimony, the ark of the covenant. The words are in that, in the covenant, ark of the covenant, the ark of the testimony. It's called the ark of the covenant and the ark of the testimony because it holds the testimony. The bride and wife is a dwelling place of her husband. And so, and I went over the word for temple place, that it comes from a primitive root to be able to have capacity to endure, to prevail. And so I believe that's really what it's talking about. How you get endurance is because you have the covenant, you're betrothed.